All right, and up next we have Barry Graubart and Drew Messersmith from Agolo.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting Agolo to speak today. We're going to talk a little bit about our AI-powered summarization and our knowledge graph creation. So while Google solved web search, 2 decades ago, enterprise search still sucks. There are a lot of reasons for that, but at the end of the day, warfighters are struggling to find critical information that they need in a timely manner. Agolo's summarization and our knowledge graph creation can help make your existing search and analytic applications work better. So let's look at a framework for what we do. We start with content, right? That can be internal, Nipper or Sipper, or it can be open source. And I'll talk a little bit to it later, but we've had to become masters at extracting data out of PDF documents, which for anyone who's been doing AI work knows it's more difficult than it should be. But here's our core technology. We generate summaries, and we've got different summarization models based on use cases and needs. But really, it's that personalization that's the big differentiator. If I asked each of you, if I gave you each a 100-page document and asked you to summarize it for me, I'd get very, very different summaries from each of you, right? A fielding engineer, a generalist, a budget analyst may all need information out of the same document, but what they need is really, really different. So Agolo uses, when we're integrated with search, we use our query-based summarizer, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute in a demo, but that will give you a custom summary that's very much based on what you're searching for. Similar to that, we have an ontology-based summarizer that is focused using either role-based personas or other interest graphs to determine what's going to be of interest to different users. And we can do those summaries on a single document or across multiple documents. At the bottom, this is kind of our secret sauce, right? Agolo has the ability to create a knowledge graph from almost any content using an unsupervised learning model. That can be used to drive our summarization, but it also can be used outside of the Agolo platform to really enhance any kind of research or intelligence application. On the delivery side, everything we do is built on RESTful APIs, so it's really easy for integration. We built everything in Kubernetes, so you can deploy it on any cloud or on bare metal, however you need to. And it's all containerized, so it's really easy to deploy across your environment and across different impact levels. So let's take a look at a quick demo. So first, I'm going to show you our summarization-powered search. This is an application that we built in partnership with Microsoft Azure Cognitive Search team, and we built this for the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. This was at the start of the pandemic. Like the Navy, like every organization over the last few years, really had to dig in and reshape what they're doing to understand how to survive through COVID. And the White House was looking for wanted to bring in all of the research. There was a fire hose of new information, new research coming out at the time around COVID. They wanted one place to be able to go in and allow healthcare professionals and researchers to search in one spot to get the latest information around COVID. When we started this, I think there were about 30,000 documents in a repository. Now it's closer to 400,000. And now I'm going to show you a quick demo, and I'll show you where our piece fits into this. So I'm going to search for ibuprofen. If you remember, at the start of the pandemic, there was a question of whether you should avoid ibuprofen with COVID patients. Turned out not to be the case, but they wrote a lot about it. So I like to demo it because there's lots of rich content here. I mentioned our knowledge graphs a few moments ago. The first thing we're going to see is where our knowledge graphs come into play. So when I typed in ibuprofen, it searched our concept graph, which was a knowledge graph that was built and is maintained on this set of content. But it's searching in there to say, what terms are you finding in this data set that have a relationship to ibuprofen? And we see them listed here. So in this particular use case, they're using the graph to enable query expansion. I can expand my query from ibuprofen, and as I click additional terms here, we're going to see the search results will change, right? So if I add naproxen, maybe the generic of NSAID, acetaminophen. I try not to click on anything that I can't pronounce when I'm giving demos, so let's stop there. But we see that the results changed throughout this. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, one of the documents, and this is a long document. It's a research, again, document from this data set. But one of the things we did, when I clicked on that, it did an API call to the Agolo Summarizer, and it passed not only the text of the document, but it passed my query, which was ibuprofen, naproxen, NSAID, and acetaminophen. So it passed the summary, the query of my search and the document, and it created a contextually relevant summary based on that query. So if I had instead searched for something else, I don't know, cytokine storm and immune response, whatever, I might have landed on the same document, but I would get a very, very different summary because the summary is going to be contextually relevant to my search. So again, the search part was through Azure, but it's the query expansion using our graph, and then the contextually relevant summary using our query-based summarization here. I want to show one other demo, which is going to show you how our knowledge graph creation works. So I've built a graph that was used our unsupervised knowledge graph creator, and I pointed it to a set of documents that were related to hypersonics. These are kind of open source technical reports I found on this. Now, the graph I'm going to show you, the graph application itself is a product, and we have endpoints for that today. I'm going to use a data visualization prototype on top of that because it's hard to show you a graph without showing you something. So I'm going to use this, the data visualization layer. That right now is an early prototype. We're working with a client to kind of refine that into a product, but the graph itself is live in production. The visualization is a little bit of a prototype. So I'm going to do one. Let's search again. This is related to hypersonics. I'm going to search for air breathing. And what it's going to give me back is a graph here that's going to show all of the nodes with a strong relationship. Air breathing is here in the center, and it's going to show me other entities and other things it found with a relationship to air breathing in this text. The edges between nodes will tell me how strong that relationship is, and it'll show me kind of links to the supporting documents that have a relationship here, that where those relationships were found. So I can jump in if I wanted to see, on any of these terms, air breathing, propulsion, I can kind of quickly get a small graph of the related terms in this context here. This is, I mentioned a prototype. Give me a week, and if anyone wants to see it, ping me later. But in a week, we'll have it where you can click on an edge, and we'll give you those contextually relevant summaries in the context of those two nodes. So if I, if I search on this node, it would give me summaries of, that use the context of air breathing and endurance within it. I can drill down into other. I can sort of shift my focus. So if I want to go into sort of hypersonic up here, I can just double click on hypersonic, and I'm going to get a new graph, hypersonic, at the center in the focus, and we'll see different terms around it as well. So, as many of you know, when you've got small lists of documents and entities, you can use lists and things to look at it. But when you're getting into the, thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of documents, and looking to find relationships that are buried and hidden between them, you really need tools to be able to navigate that graph. So I'm going to come back a moment to our presentation, and I want to talk through a couple of things here. So first, for the IT folks in the audience, I want to just walk through the architecture of what we saw for that summarization-powered search. Right. So this, again, is Agolo integrated with, in this case, it was Azure Cognitive Search, could be any search platform or almost any workflow application. But most of what's on the screen here is actually Azure stuff. The two yellow boxes are where we fit in. So I just want to talk you through that a second. As new documents flow into the search index, right? So new documents, whether they're in SharePoint or wherever they're residing, they're going to flow into that search index to be indexed. At that same point, they're passed to our knowledge graph builder, which appends those to the knowledge graph. So the knowledge graph continues to be updated in near real time. But let's start now from the user experience on the left. The users are going to do a search, just like I did before for ibuprofen. That's going to query the search index, but it's also going to pass that term to our knowledge graph. And our knowledge graph is going to return related terms, as we saw with naproxen and NSAID and acetaminophen. So we do the query expansion at that point, return that to present to the users. They may expand the query, modifying the search. And then again, if they click on a document, it's going to make a second API call to the Agolo Summarizer down here at the bottom, passing the query terms. Again, with me, it was acetaminophen, ibuprofen, NSAID, and naproxen, along with the full text of the document, and we generate that contextually relevant summary. So again, really easy, lightweight integration here. You've got one endpoint to go and build out the graph, another endpoint to query the graph, and then an endpoint to generate the summary. This, again, I'm showing it in search, but you could really use this in any kind of workflow application, any kind of research or intelligence application. One more behind the scenes pick I want to show. I mentioned earlier, anyone who's done any kind of work to try to extract data from PDFs has as much hair left as I do after trying that, right? It's just a really hard process. It's never clean. It's never easy. We've done some really cool things to enhance the ability to extract data cleanly out of PDFs. And we're using a combination of computer vision and natural language processing. And we're able to identify these different sections of documents, understand what they are, and mark them as this is a text block, that's a label. We'll have a diagram, we'll have infographics, we'll have tables, and so forth. And that's going to allow us, or that allows us to kind of pull out clean data from different sections of that and render them in different ways to support all of the analytics we want to do. It's kind of an ugly picture here, but it's telling a really powerful story. So stepping back for a second, to Agolo, the company, right? So we raised our Series A funding last month, so yay. But when I look at the investors, we're really proud of this team of investors. Google is one of our investors. They have built several times. They've built their own summarizers and tried to go down this path to do summarization, and they've struggled. And that they were excited to ultimately invest in Agolo, seeing that we were able to do things by focusing that they were struggling to deliver on. Microsoft struggled with some of those same things, and also with the PDF extraction. But what we love with Microsoft, not only are they one of our largest investors, they're our biggest partner. They were the partner on that, I mentioned the White House COVID search platform, but they're also partners with us on a couple of other projects, including one for DTIC that I'll mention in a moment. Franklin Templeton, big asset management firm, their analysts are struggling today. They need to monitor ESG reports, environmental, social, and governance reports, in addition to all of the kind of investment research they've always done. And each of their, these analysts, they're now responsible for covering thousands of companies, reading these 100, 200, sometimes 300-page detailed reports to extract lots of detail out of. And they're, instead of reading a 300-page report, they're getting a 2 or 3-page summary now that spotlights the operational goals and metrics that they need to extract from those reports. So that's a really great investor and partner for us. And then the last one is Ridgeline. Ridgeline Investors is a division of WestExec. And Ridgeline specializes, their focus is in helping dual-use companies like us navigate the federal market. As you probably all know, for little startups like Agolo, it's, the federal world and DoD world is not the easiest place to navigate, and they've been a great help. That's in fact helped us over the last 2 years or so. We've received 4 SBIR awards. We've got with Air Force Lifecycle Management Center doing kind of counter UAS research. The Defense Technical Information Center, DTIC, has a repository of millions and millions of documents that they're using us in very similar to what I showed you in the COVID demo. They're going to be using us to search and analyze that, but then building a whole bunch of intelligence analytical applications on top of that. We just landed a new SIBR with AFRL, the Air Force Research Labs up in Rome, New York, focused on knowledge graph. And we're moving past the SIBR phase and starting to figure out how do we deploy into the production environment. So we have, with DTIC, we have a production deployment that's going to happen in the fall of this year. So we're really excited to be working with them there. As part of that, we're going through the ATO process for IL2, IL4, and IL5 environments. And we've also started the facility clearance process. We know, until this point, we've mostly relied on partners who have cleared staff who can kind of help do the integration, but we know that's a core competency we need. So we've just recently kicked that off and are moving through that. Our team, highly technical, a lot of data science and engineering folks with deep natural language processing, machine learning, summarization and knowledge graph background. We've got a great supportive board. Andy Jacks was heading up a company called Lattice, which was a knowledge graph creation company acquired by Apple. Had a lot of similarities to what we're doing here. Samir Kumar is head of AI investments for Microsoft through the M12 Venture Fund. And Steve Berg is a serial entrepreneur, deep background in financial services. And he's kind of helping us understand how to build a company.
And Barry, we got a question posted from Don Desaro. Have we applied your tool to SharePoint document library before?
We've done some of the preliminary work there. And with Microsoft as a partner, we are eager and they are eager to identify a client to do that, to build those hooks in. So we'd love to explore that, John, with you. But it's an area where we know how to build the connectors, and we know there's some SharePoint can be tricky, but we'd love to do that. Great. And building on that, right? So we talked about these things with summarization powered search, research summarization, use of the graph for query expansion, that sort of unsupervised knowledge graph creation, and then ontology development and maintenance is another area where we can bootstrap ontologies and sort of detect changes and things that you might want to work. So those are kind of 5 areas we've worked in. We'd love to understand more if there's interest in those or related areas where this technology might be able to fit into your workflows. We're a product company, not a services business, but we have these core APIs that can be deployed in interesting ways in any kind of research or analytics or intelligence workflows. So, thank you. Thanks, John. Any other questions?
All right. And if the audience wants to get in touch with you after this for questions, we can make that happen too. All right. So we will take a quick little break, and our next presentation will begin at 2:20.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.